Next topic is Ajax and JavaScript. Okay. Well, JavaScript support in Rails. So we'll talk about Ajax a little bit if you are not familiar with the concept of Ajax, and we will then talk about general concept of what is called the unobtrusive JavaScript, UJS in short. And then we are going to talk about a general concept of HTML5 data attributes. Okay, so these two topics are for general concept of these two things. You need to understand these two topics from the conceptual perspective first before we move on how those things are in fact being used in Rails. Okay, so the next topic is how UJS is being used and supported in Rails 3 and 4, and how HTML5 data attributes are being supported in Rails 3 and 4. And then we are going to see jQuery UJS installation and configuration. So jQuery UJS is installed as a default for every Rails application. We are going to see UJS enabled view helpers that are provided in Rails. And then we are going to see how Ajax is being handled at the server level as well as the client level. Okay, so you have a lot to talk about. Quick introduction on Ajax. I assume most of you know the general concept of Ajax. So Ajax allows you to do async request to the server, so the users do not need to be interrupted by just sending a request to the server. So users operation continue, and then request will be sent to the server asynchronously in the background. And partial update is another benefit of Ajax. So instead of full page refresh, when the response is received from the server, the page will be updated partially. The whole page stay the same, and only the components that need to be updated will be updated. So that is called a partial update. Okay, so Ajax has been around more than, I think almost 15 years now. So it's pretty common. The features that everybody is using. So let's take a look at some example JavaScript code. So this is the jQuery code. Okay, so jQuery send the Ajax call, and this URL is basically destination where you want to send the request. And then when there is a successful response from the server, we want to invoke this function in which we are basically receive the data. So this HTML is the argument for this function call, and what we do is basically append whatever response to the element that is identified with this result ID. Okay, and this is the JavaScript code, and the same code could be written in CoffeeScript. So CoffeeScript is a bit simpler than JavaScript code. Anyway, so this is Ajax. Now let's talk about the concept of unobtrusive JavaScript. I'm going to use the term UJS because that's a bit simpler to pronounce. So let's talk about the general concept of UJS. So motivation for UJS, unobtrusive JavaScript support. The reason is because your application should work with or without JavaScript support. Okay. In fact, some devices do not support JavaScript in their browser, and even if the browser supports JavaScript, users might turn it off for security reasons. So in your browser, one of the settings you can do is in fact turn off JavaScript. Or if you're working in a corporate environment, corporate firewall may in fact block by removing all script tags. So corporation policy might disable JavaScript support. So for these reasons, your application should be working with or without JavaScript. Of course, with the JavaScript, you could do a lot of fancy UI stuff. However, even if JavaScript is not supported for these reasons, your application should still behave with the functionalities. Okay, so that is the motivation for UJS. It might not look fancy from UI standpoint, but users still should be able to do things with your application. Okay. Another motivation for UJS is a separation of concerns principle. So JavaScript should be separated from HTML, meaning your HTML page should not contain any JavaScript code inline. Okay, so these are the motivations for the UJS. So there is in fact a web page in W3C website, the principles of unobtrusive JavaScript. So if you click this link, you should be able to go to that website, and I strongly recommend you to read general concept of UJS. Okay, but I'm going to talk about the key points of these principles of unobtrusive JavaScript in the following slide. So how do we achieve this UJS, unobtrusive JavaScript? Meaning, how can we make our application to function with or without JavaScript? Okay, so there are several ways of doing things, several ways, in fact, to achieve UJS in your Rails application, well, actually in your application. So this is general concept that should be applicable to all applications, not only for Rails application, but also Java web applications as well. Okay, the first, you need to separate out JavaScript code from your HTML page into its own file. Okay, so JavaScript code should be in its own file. In the same way, the styling should be separated out from HTML page and should be in its own file. Okay, so what that means is that you do not want to have any inline JavaScript code in your HTML page. Instead, you want to have JavaScript code to be in its own file, and in your HTML page, you are going to just make a reference. So this is what you are going to see: script, SRC, and JavaScript file. So this could be complete URL path, so it could be HTTP blah blah blah. So in this case, it's a relative path, so this file is actually in the same location, same directory of this HTML file. Okay, so this is one thing you should do in order to achieve UJS, unobtrusive JavaScript. Okay, and the binding of event handler to HTML element should be done in JavaScript code. Okay, what that means is that you do not want any inline JavaScript event handler with HTML elements. What does that mean? I'm going to show an example in the following slide. Okay, so you will have a better understanding when you look at the code. Okay, and then you can also use HTML5 data attributes. Okay, so again, I'm going to explain this using an example in the following slide. So by doing these three things, you can actually have your web application to be functional with or without JavaScript. Okay. Okay, so this actually shows UJS example, obtrusive versus unobtrusive JavaScript code. So this obtrusive code is bad programming style, so I'm going to use the term bad. Unobtrusive JavaScript code, this is good. Okay, so you do not want to do this, instead you want to do this. So by using unobtrusive coding style, your application should be functional with or without JavaScript code. So in this bad code, you have an element. We have the link element, and basically when the mouse is over, I'm actually calling JavaScript code right here. Okay, so in this case, this is obtrusive code because JavaScript code is inside your HTML page. Okay, now this is unobtrusive code, meaning this is a good coding. This is a good practice. So you have an HTML page and it doesn't contain any JavaScript code. Okay, so if you see this, the same the anchor element, which is the link, and it just have an ID, and all JavaScript code is going to be referenced from external file, in this case my underscore javascript.js file. Okay, so in that JavaScript file, what you want to do is you want to find an element. Okay, so I want to find my ID element. Okay, so this is the binding I was talking about. So if you go back to here, the binding of an event handler to HTML element should be done in JavaScript code. Okay, what that means is that I am searching for that element in my JavaScript code. Okay, so once I search for that my ID element, I get the reference to that element, and then I can bind this hide all JavaScript function for mouse over event. Okay, so this HTML page still should work without any JavaScript code, and everything is separated out into JavaScript, external JavaScript file. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so benefits of UJS. Why UJS is in fact useful. I mean, I said, the final benefit of UJS is that your web application should be functional with or without JavaScript code. So that's basically what we are talking about here. So without the JavaScript, you still provide the basic HTML functionality. That is still available. So it should be able to be used on wider coverage of devices and browsers, even browsers without the JavaScript support enabled. Okay, and it will provide a better maintenance because you have separation of concerns, meaning JavaScript code is separated out into its own file. So whenever you need to make a change to your behavior, you go to JavaScript file. You don't have to actually search through the HTML file and search for those JavaScript code embedded. Okay, so that is bad practice. Better performance by having JavaScript code to be in its own file. Now JavaScript code could be minimized and concatenated. Okay, so we are going to actually learn about asset pipeline sometime today, this afternoon. By using asset pipeline in Grails, you could have JavaScript codes to be minimized, meaning it will probably remove all the blank spaces, and the long variable name could be actually shortened, and then all those JavaScript files could be concatenated into a single file, so that from a browser standpoint it can actually just download a single file rather than multiple JavaScript files and things like that. And also JavaScript code could be cached. Okay, so by having JavaScript code to be separated out, you have a better performance. You can have a better performance because of these two reasons. And better reusability. The same JavaScript code could be actually used in multiple applications. Okay, all right. Now so we just talked about the general concept of UJS, unobtrusive JavaScript. Any questions on that? Okay, moving forward. Now let's talk about HTML5 data attributes. Again, this is a general concept. Okay, so we are not actually talking about how these things are being applied in Rails. We are just talking about the general concept of HTML5 data attributes. So what is HTML5 data attribute? So HTML5 introduced the concept of data attribute, and this is an attribute without any namespace. Okay, so if you try to find a namespace for data, you're not gonna find it in your HTML document. Okay, so this is brand new, in fact, like a keyword. Okay, whose name start with the string data? So any string that start with the data dash, that is considered as a data attribute in the browser. Okay, of course, HTML5 enabled browser. Now, these data attributes are intended to store custom data private to the page. Okay, so if you have HTML page, and if you want to maintain some private data for that particular page, then you could use data attribute. Okay, By private, I'm not saying, from security standpoint. I'm actually saying that that data will be only relevant to that particular page. That's what I meant by private. Okay. Okay, so this is an example. Suppose if you have HTML page that contains this A element, and now you can actually have a data message. By the way, as long as you have a data dash, you can actually name the rest of it in any way you want. It's completely up to you. So I'm going to use the term message here, and I'm assigning hello JPassion into data message. Okay, so this page will actually remember that there is in fact a data message element whose a data message that is actually assigned with this value. Okay, now in your JavaScript code, you can actually make a reference. So when you say get attribute and then data message, right? Basically, so in this JavaScript, the jQuery code, I'm trying to find alert element, so it will find this element, and then when that is clicked, this function will be invoked, and what it does is basically doing an alert, and it's gonna call get attribute method of that element. So data message is one of the attribute, right? So when you call get attribute data message, it will return the value of hello JPassion, and that will be used for alerting, okay, for that JavaScript code. Okay, so this is data attribute. So what is a big deal? The reason that you want to use HTML5 data attribute for building unobtrusive JavaScript code style. So here I could have a page called page A. It has its own value of hello world. And now page B, I have data message called hello JPassion. Okay, now I have common JavaScript code that is making a reference to this attribute to get the value. So I can use the same JavaScript code for handling multiple HTML page, and basically the values are coming from this data message data attribute. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? Okay, moving forward. All right, so we're going to do exercise 1. So here we're going to actually exercise this unobtrusive JavaScript code as well as HTML5 data attribute. Okay, so let's take a look at the lab documentation. Let me see whether I have those things. And Ajax. And okay, so let me just unzip this guy. Okay, so we're gonna do exercise 1. So here we are going to do some experimentation with obtrusive Java code, and then we are gonna convert it into unobtrusive JavaScript code, and then we are also playing around with the data attribute. Okay, so let's create an HTML file. Okay, some location of yours. I'm gonna actually create on the labs. Okay, so I'm gonna create my test.html file. Okay. Okay, sublime text immediate. Okay, so it takes this time. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to copy this code. So this is the HTML5 HTML file. So here this is a bad example. This is the obtrusive codes, because we have this JavaScript code, right, inlined into HTML page. Okay, so let's save it, and then if you press F12, okay, or you can right click it and you can open it in browser, and it basically works like, click here, then it will just say JavaScript alert hello JPassion. Okay, so this is how it works. But here, this is an example of obtrusive, meaning bad practice, because you are, inserting JavaScript code along with HTML. Okay, so we are going to convert this obtrusive JavaScript code into unobtrusive JavaScript code. So basically, what we need to do is we are going to separate out any JavaScript code into separate file. Okay, so I'm going to actually just copy this guy right here. So here we are going to use jQuery, and then I have my JavaScript code is captured as my test.js file, and then basically the element doesn't contain any JavaScript code. Okay, so and then we are going to create my test.js file. So we're going to actually create my test.js file. So in this case, basically we are going to search for alert element. So let's actually save this guy first. So I'm going to save it here, my test.js file. Okay, so we save them all. So basically it will search for the alert element. So that is this alert element, right? Okay, and then when that is clicked, it will perform the JavaScript function. It's basically alerting it, okay, and return false. Okay, so here when we do browser, okay, and it will work in the same way, but basically what we have done is that we make the code to be unobtrusive, meaning it's better practice. Okay, so that's 1.2. Now 1.3, now we are going to use HTML5 data attributes. So in this file, we are going to, for that, the alert, we are going to add hello JPassion.com data message. Okay, so I am going to the HTML ID alert. So I'm going to add right here data message. Okay, and then I'm going to change in my test code. So instead of hard coding in my JavaScript code, I can actually now access that element's attribute value. So I'm gonna just use this guy. So instead of hard coding this message, I'm going to get the data from the HTML page itself using data message data attribute. Okay, so we save the change, and just make sure that we are, so I'm going to actually say jpassion.com 2, just make sure we are not cheating. Okay, so we save the change. Now if I try to browser and then click it, and now it says hello jpassion.com jpassion 2. So that works, right? So again, what is a big deal? The big deal is because when you have another file, HTML file, in this case, we are going to have my test2.html file, which contains different value. Okay, so we are going to create another file, and this file will be called my test2.html file, which provides a different value. Okay, so here, and we are going to save, and here we are going to call it my test2 HTML file. Okay, so in this case, the data message, the content is life is good. Okay, and while in my test1 HTML file, it is actually hello JPassion. But this JavaScript code still can handle both pages. So I can actually still run this guy, and it works, and it will display JPassion 2. If I want to run this guy, again, I can actually open in a browser. I'm actually using the same JavaScript code, but this time the message is life is good. Does that make sense? So basically, by separating it out into a different JavaScript file, as well as by usage of HTML5 data attribute, we make this code to be unobtrusive style. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes, well, probably 5 minutes. Okay, now let's see how this unobtrusive the JavaScript is going to be supported in Rails 3. So Rails 2.x generate obtrusive JavaScript code. So the resulting code was not clean. It causes a maintenance problem, as we talked about. And browsers without JavaScript enabled experience usability issues. Okay, so from Rails 3, UJS unobtrusive Java is supported through JavaScript framework specific UJS adapter. This UJS adapter also includes Rails.js file. So Rails.js file contains all the JavaScript library that could be used in Rails application. Okay, so there are several UJS adapters supported in Rails, and the one that is being used as a default is jQuery JavaScript framework UJS adapter. So that is called jQuery UJS.js file. Okay, so that is a default, and actually that is provided inside the jQuery Rails gem. Okay, so if you in fact take a look at any JavaScript any Rails application, for example, let me just to see hello world, you can see if you take a look at the gem file, you can see that is jQuery Rails gem. Okay, so that is included for every Rails application. Okay. And if you do not want to use jQuery, which is the default, you can use other UJS adapters like a prototype, Mutus, and things like that. Okay, so prototype UJS adapter is going to be called the prototype-ujs.js file. Mutus UJS adapter is going to be called Mutus ujs.js file, things like that. Okay, so let's compare Rails 2 and Rails 3 code. Okay, so Rails 2, as I said, is obtrusive code, and Rails 3 is unobtrusive code. So Rails 2 generate obtrusive JavaScript code, and basically when you have link to remote, underneath it will generate this code. So you can see, it has an onLink, on-click event handler contains the actual JavaScript code. Okay, so this is very obtrusive, and also it's very hard to read as well, right? Okay, in Rails 3, it generates unobtrusive JavaScript code, also taking advantage of HTML5 data attribute. Okay, so for creating Ajax code, okay, so by the way, link to remote is for creating Ajax code. Okay, so that's the reason it's using Ajax.request and all that stuff. In Rails 3, all you have to do as a developer is basically saying remote true. Then underneath, it will create this HTML file that contains data-remote equal true. Okay, so instead of this code will be generated. Okay, so Rails.js file, okay, inside the jQuery UJS.js file basically searches for any data attribute and then generate unobtrusive JavaScript code. So by looking at data remote true, it will generate unobtrusive JavaScript code in a separate JavaScript file. Does this make sense? Any questions on this slide? So this is the code that you are going to write, and when that gets translated into HTML, this what gets generated underneath, and then Rails.js JavaScript library gets involved, and then it will in fact generate JavaScript code underneath. Okay. Question from Terry: where are the IDs edited? What do you mean? What do you mean IDs? Are you saying that, yeah, you don't have to have an ID? Basically, it has a way of figure things out. You can actually search for, ID doesn't have to be present, but it could be actually having an ID. Okay, is that what you're asking, Terry? So keeping the JS separate from the HTML and Rails. Yeah, so basically, you know, the Rails.js contains JavaScript code that can handle this guy. So, you know, you can think of Rails.js is a separate JavaScript file. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the jQuery UJS adapter, which is represented by jQuery UJS.js file. So it does actually support multiple features from the unobtrusive JavaScript code standpoint. It could force confirmation dialogues to pop up for various actions, and it could make a non-get request from hyperlinks. It could make forms or hyperlinks submit data asynchronously using Ajax, meaning, you know, it could actually support Ajax call, and have submit buttons become automatically disabled on form submit to prevent double clicking, meaning once it is submitted it will be disabled. Okay, all right, so these features we're going to actually talk about in the following slide. So if you don't understand what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. You know, these are just the features for now that are supported by this jQuery UJS adapter, and that's all I want you to remember for now. Now, these features are achieved by adding certain HTML5 data attribute to your HTML page. So as I said before, this is what you are going to write as a developer. So I'm going to use link to method, and then show is an argument, and post method, and then I'm actually adding this hash attribute remote true, and it will be translated into HTML file that actually contains this data attribute. Okay, and then jQuery UJS adapter will read this data attribute and will generate appropriate JavaScript code for you. Okay, or it could actually just use the JavaScript code that are present in Rails.js file. Okay, so we're going to actually take a look at some of these examples here. So HTML5 data attribute support in Rails. So Rails 3 provide these data attributes. So these are data attributes that are defined in Rails framework. So data method, this is for setting HTTP method, or, you know, REST method. Okay, and the data confirm, this is confirmation message to use before performing some action, and data remote is for performing Ajax operation. Data disabled with is disable form elements during a form submission. So these are the things that are provided by Rails, the jQuery Rails that support these features that I just talked about. Okay, so each of these features are supported by data attribute defined in jQuery UJS adapter. Okay, so if you have HTML, the element that contains data confirm, I assure, data method delete, and data remote true. So what it does is that if I have a data confirm, basically when this link is clicked, it will display I assure dialog box. Data method, this is going to use HTTP delete method. Data remote equals true, that means this call, this is going to be executed as an Ajax call, meaning it will be sending requests in the background asynchronously. So these are the data attributes that you can use in HTML file. Okay, does that make sense? Question from okay, so a couple of questions from Terry. How does one override a JS function, for example? And the next question is Kenneth. Yeah, can I see generated JavaScript code from Rails? All right, so hold on to those questions, because later on we are going to in fact deal with the JavaScript code ourselves. Okay, so hold on to those two questions. Those are good questions, and I'll answer later on. Okay, when we actually cover the latter part of this presentation. Okay. In fact, if you take a look at the index.html.eld file, okay, in the source code, you know, this is what we are going to see. Again, that's something we can actually do in the exercise. Okay. Okay, so how do you add these HTML5 data attributes to your Rails application? So in Rails application, as a developer, you don't typically add these HTML5 data attributes directly in your HTML file. Okay, instead, you are going to use Rails 3 built-in view helpers. Okay, so these are the helpers that generate these attributes for you. So, you are in fact working with a high level Rails methods to generate these data attributes. Okay, so we are going to learn about these Rails 3 built-in view helpers later in this presentation. Okay, moving forward, jQuery UJS installation and configuration. So as I said, jQuery Rails gem is automatically added for every Rails application as a default. Okay, and that'll include and then there is what is called the asset pipeline in app assets JavaScript application.js file, and inside you can specify all the JavaScript code that you want to include for your application. So when you say require jQuery, that means I want the jQuery library to be available for this application. It also includes jQuery_js. So this is the one that actually indicating to the system, Rails, that I want jQuery UJS adapter JavaScript file to be included for this application. Okay, so let me actually show you this application.js file. So if you go to any application of your choice, you can actually go to app assets, and then we have JavaScript here. So if you click the application.js file, you can see this is an indication. We're going to actually talk about this file in detail later on in asset management, but basically what it's saying is that I want jQuery library, and I want jQuery UJS library, and I want TurboLink library, and I want all the JavaScript code under this directory to be included for my application. So that's basically what it's talking about. But as you can see, it's adding this jQuery library and jQuery UJS library for every Rails application. Okay, so there is nothing that you have to do in order to take advantage of UJS support in your Rails application. It is already configured for you. Okay, yeah, so I talked about the jQuery Rails gem. Okay, and this one actually includes Rails.js file. So Rails.js file contains a lot of JavaScript library that you can use. And so the way that this manuscript file is being used is basically, if you take a look at the root layout file. So if you go to the views and the layout, and this is application HTML ELB file. So here is actually indicating that JavaScript include tag application. So what that means is that I am going to use application.js file, the one that I just showed you, as a directive file. Okay, so for now you can think of it, so this directive file we just talked about, the application.js file. So basically I'm going to use this directive file, this we call manifest file. We are going to use this manifest file to load all the JavaScript libraries that are needed. So you can specify all the JavaScript libraries that you want to include for this Rails application. You can add those things in this file. Okay, all right, so basically you don't have to do anything much in order to take advantage of JavaScript from jQuery, including unobtrusive UJS library. Okay, so this is the one that I just mentioned, application.js file on the assets directory. Okay, so let's talk about let's do the exercise 2. Hopefully this will give you a little bit more perspective how things work. Okay, so let's actually create, we can actually create Rails and the new Ajax app. Okay, and then we are gonna do the same thing. So we can actually create the students scaffolding, and then we are going to add students in the cs.db file. Okay, so we go to Ajax, and then Rails generate. I'm gonna just copy this guy, and we do the scaffolding, and then we are going to migrate so that we create a students table. Then we are going to modify cs.db file for creating 3 students. And we are going to change the route.lb file. Taking its time. Okay, so we just did, and then rake db migrate, and routes. Students index. Okay, so we save everything, and then we are going to run the application finally. Okay, then we should be able to see those 3 students. See, let's wait for a few more seconds. Okay, and I should be able to see those 3 students. Okay, all right, good. So now we are ready to play around. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the gem file, and we see jQuery Rails gem is included, and then we are going to take a look at the application HTML ELB file. That is the root layout file, which include JavaScript include tag, and it says application, and basically that is referencing this guy. So you can go to assets, images, JavaScript, and application.js file, and you can see jQuery and jQuery UJS libraries are included for this application. Okay, so now I want you to remember, I want you to actually observe. So if you go to this page, and we're going to take a look at the generated HTML file. So if you take a look at the generated HTML file by right click any place, and you are going to see view page source, and you can see there is a data method for this is the for this is for delete, right? So you see there is the data method delete, and oh, that's, yes, we have just 2. So this is not doing Ajax, so we do have just 2 data attribute. One is called the data confirm, and the other one is a data method, meaning whenever this is clicked, this link is clicked, it will send HTTP delete method, and this is actually for confirmation. So if I click this guy, it will send me it will give me the I sure confirmation because of that. Okay, and yes, and then it will send HTTP delete request to the server. Okay, so that is basically that exercise. And okay, now in this case you can see there are, if you take a look at the source file, again you can see there are a bunch of so let's actually take a look at the source again, and you can see these scripts are in fact added. So basically using script element is loading a JScript jQuery ujs.js file, jQuery.js file, turbolinks.js file, and it's also actually the downloading student.js file and application.js file. Right? So these are kind of pre-provided JS file, and later on we're going to actually create our own JS file. Okay. All right, so that is so now we are going to take a look at index.html ELB file. So yeah, so we actually so if you take a look at the index.html ELB file, we did not actually write this kind of we do not write this data confirm and data method, things like that, directly in our element. Instead, what we have done is, this gets generated from index.html ELB file. So if you take a look at index.elb file, if you take a look at the destroy, so basically method delete and data confirm. So this is basically, we are using high level helpers from Rails, and this will generate when I call method and delete. So when I call this, actually this is basically hash, right? When I have this hash underneath, it will generate this. Okay, so that's what I meant. If you remember what I said, as a developer, yeah, so that's what I said here. How do you add this HTML5 data attribute to your Rails application? You don't add this HTML5 data attributes directly in your HTML yourself. Instead, you are going to use built-in view helpers, which knows how to generate this HTML with appropriate data attributes. So basically, you are coding at this high level using just helpers, and these helpers know how to generate those data attributes. So that's what I meant by that. Okay. So hopefully you guys get the sense of what I mean by that statement. Okay, so I'll give you guys about the 10 minutes to try this exercise. Next topic is Rails provided UJS enabled view helpers. Yeah, we talked about it is these view helpers you are going to use in your code to generate these data attributes in HTML page. Right, so we're gonna actually see some of those, but here we're gonna mostly focus on Ajax part of it. So this is how you are going to call you're going to have a form submission in Ajax manner. So you are going to use remote true. If you have this hash, basically that indicates to Rails that you want to send this form submission in async manner, and HTML5 code that was generated, HTML page that gets generated will be set with data remote equal true. Okay, so you use in your code like this remote true, but what gets generated in HTML is this. Okay. And then Rails.js, which is the JavaScript library in Rails, then searches for this data attribute and attach appropriate handlers. Okay, in this case, jQuery Ajax handler will be attached to handle the Ajax submission of this form submission. Okay. This is the another example. So if you're using form tag, so in previous slide we are using form 4, which is the form builder, and this is using form tag. Again, you are going to actually use the same the view handler helper I meant, so remote true, and again it will generate data remote equal true. Okay. And for link, yeah, you can also use remote true, and then it will generate data remote equal true data attribute. And again, when Rails.js file, take a look at this, and it will actually attach jQuery Ajax handler with this. Same thing for button. Now let's talk about how Ajax is being handled on the server. Now, in your server code, and for Ajax request, server will choose script or JavaScript as a default response format if client does not specify preferred data type, meaning data format. Okay, so what that means is that when a call is made from the client in Ajax manner, the server will decide the response format will be JavaScript, okay, as a default. So in this case, we have a create method, and it creates a user object, and then it's going to use respond to. And in terms of selection of the format, it does support HTML and it does support JSON. And if the JavaScript support is added like this, and then it will in fact send a JavaScript code, and that JavaScript code is going to be create.js.elb. Okay, so the default behavior on the server is to send JavaScript code. So basically assumes that you have a JavaScript code that sends to the client to handle the response from the server. Okay, yeah, it might sound a bit confusing. We are going to actually do hands-on lab on this, so hopefully you will have a better understanding on what's going on later. Okay, so suppose we have create.js.ejb file like this, okay, and in that case we are going to have a JavaScript code that actually, append whatever calling this guy. We are going to call render user, and the result of it is going to be escaped, and then we are going to append to the users element in the page. Okay, so in this case we have a JavaScript code that actually sent to the server as a response, and that JavaScript code will actually do something on the client side. Okay, so let's do exercise 3. So we are going to modify index dot, so here we are going to use, so idea of, in this case, changing index page is, what we want to do is something like, we want to we're going to actually have index page, and in which we are going to send the request, and whenever there is a new response comes in, we want to just add right here. Okay, so we are basically performing the form submission within the index.html page, and then the changes will be made on this page. Okay, so that's the idea. So let's actually try to make this one work. So first, index.html page is so here, instead of having a link to new the .html ELB page, we are going to just render form. So we are actually using form partial. So basically we are going to I'm going to just remove this guy. We are going to actually have this guy in the index.jsp page, index.html ELB page. Okay, and then for form.html ELB, so basically this is a partial. So the partial, for the partial, we are going to send it in Ajax manner. So we're going to actually change that partial. So let's go to app and views and students, and this is a partial. So for the form submission of this, we are going to send it as Ajax call. So I'm going to add this for form 4 like this. Okay, and we save the change. Okay, and so let's actually refresh the page. So we are going to I'm going to just go to the index.jsp page here. Oops. Oh, now we have a problem. So it says the first argument in form cannot contain or nil or empty. So let's see why we got that problem. So we click this guy, and this is what you are going to see. Okay, so this error condition is due to the fact that student instance variable has not been referenced in the index.html ELB file template, but was not set in index action. So what that means is that we are trying to use this student object in the index.hlb, because when you render, it's going to actually use this guy, and it's trying to use student index let me actually slow down. It's trying to access student instance variable. The problem is this is not being set in index action. Okay, so we have to go controller, student controller, and basically all we have to do is just create the empty student instance object. Okay, like this, and we save it, and then then let's actually click this guy. Now we are seeing this the form. Okay, all right, so now we are doing up to this point. Now we are going to create a brand new student in Ajax manner. So when I enter the name and age and create student, you are going to actually see Ajax call. So we are going to actually observe that create operation by actually I want to actually use the Chrome. So let me just go to the Chrome. Not that one, yeah, localhost. Okay, so I am going to press F12. So we have okay, so now we are going to create a brand new student. So I'm going to actually use my name, age 10, and let's see, create student. So now is actually sending so it's actually sending this guy. So if you click the students, right, it's a post request, and you can see this is let's see, where does it say it is actually oh, okay, so I want to actually show this guy. So the request header is indicating request header as accept, and it is set to JavaScript. So this is what I meant as a default. Client is asking for response in the form of JavaScript. Okay, so let's, oh yeah, I want to actually use a Chrome here, and so cache, oh this is response header. I want to actually see request header. Oh, okay, so somehow request header is in the below the response. So you can see client was asking, give me JavaScript response. Okay, meaning the response format it wants is in fact JavaScript. Okay, and you can tell this is in fact the Ajax request. So you can see X requested with, and you can see this is using XML HTTP request. So this is an indication to the server that this request is made as Ajax call. Okay, all right, so let's actually take a look. Yeah, we just take a look at that. Okay, and then however, if you take a look at the content type from the server, the content type is not what is the content type? Yeah, so content type is, oh, in this case the form. Let's see. Oh, I didn't actually send. Let's actually see whether I actually create. And content type is this is a, oh, this is request header. I was actually looking for response header. So response from the server is not JavaScript. However, you know, I'm going to explain why that is the case. So content type, oh, okay, so this is what I was looking for. So in the response header, you know, the client asks for JavaScript response, but the response from the server is still HTML. The reason is this. The reason is because the server does not have JavaScript support yet. Okay, but what you have done in the request header is that, you know, you are going to have this one as a preference, but if this is not supported, then I want to actually get, I will get everything else. Okay, so that's basically, so everything else has the quotation of 0.5. So this Q is basically a weight. Okay, so this guy, each of this guy has a weight of 1.0. So what that means is that client have a preference of 1.0 for this type. But if these types are not being supported by the server, then I'll take rest of it with a 0.5 weight. Okay, so since none of these are being supported, meaning JavaScript is not being supported by the server, the client will take HTML response. That's basically what happens. So it takes the HTML response. Okay. All right, so that is what's happening. So I just actually show that, and now if you refresh the browser, it's gonna actually send the request to the server, and now we actually displaying this too. But this is not what we want. What we want is that whenever we are adding new student like XYZ and age 12, we want that the XYZ student being reflected right here, okay, through the Ajax manner, okay. So that's not what's happening. So we need to make some changes. We need to be able to actually have this Ajax support to be we need to have this Ajax support to be included. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we are going to add JavaScript support in the student controller.rb file. So we are going to go to here, and for create, right now it's supporting only HTML and JSON. Now I want to be able to support JavaScript as well. So basically you said format.js. Okay, when you include this one, then what the server will return is basically student.js.elb file. So that's the file it's going to actually look for. So let's actually save this change. Okay, and then what we are going to do is we're going to actually try to send this again. Okay, and then what we're going to experience is missing template, because it's trying to find create.js.elb file, but we have not created that file yet, right? So let's actually experience that. So I'm going to actually try so what we saved the change on the code, so we should be able to actually create student. Okay, now if you actually see the console, now you can see there is an internal error. The internal error is because basically so what gets back, we can take a look at the response. We can take a look at the response in this case. Let's see. So this one, if you take a look at the response, response header is okay. We save the change. So now you should be able to actually send format as, and we do format as. Okay, and that's saved, and let's see, and so when I actually try to create a student, let me actually just make sure that we're starting from the correct HTML page. Okay, now we're gonna actually try y and age 23 and create student. Okay, now what happens is here, response header. So I should actually take a look at response here. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. So it says missing template. Okay, because it's looking for the create.js.elb file, but it couldn't find it. Okay, so that's what it's saying, missing template. Okay, so what we need to do is now we have to create the create.js.elb file. Okay, so let's actually create it. So here we are gonna create under app views and students. So let's create JS ELB file. So we're going to create a new file, and we are going to actually just copy this code. Okay, so this code is basically displaying that one in the my table. Okay, so this is we're going to actually save this guy as create and js.elb file. Okay, now if you take a look at the code, it's basically we are trying to add this student information to the table. Now we have to actually change our index.html file, the table, what we are referencing is this table. Since we are using my table over there, we need to actually add this my table ID to this index.html ELB file table. Okay, so that is index.html ELB, and for this table we are going to add this guy. Okay, so that our JavaScript code can actually make a reference to this table. Okay, and we save the change. Okay, all right, now let's actually we are going to actually refresh the page, because we made a change in index.html ELB file, so we need to actually refresh the page to get that change. Okay, now at this point, whenever I add new name, I'm gonna actually name Boston and the age 11, and then it should actually add this one right away here. So this is Ajax behavior. Okay, and the Boston 34 and the age is 111, and you can see this is being added like this. So this is done through the JavaScript code that we have in create.js ELB file. Okay, all right, so now if you actually see the response, if you take a look at the response, what comes from the server is here. What comes from the server, I select the response here. What comes from the server is a JavaScript code. Okay, and that JavaScript code is executing to add at the end of this table. Okay, all right, so it's a little bit long demonstration, but hopefully you guys get the sense of how things work. Okay, so I'll give you about the 10 to 15 minutes to try this exercise. In the next exercise 4, instead of getting JavaScript code, in many cases you want to get the data in the form of JSON or XML, and then you provide a JavaScript yourself, right? So that's basically what you're going to do in the next topic. Okay, all right. Okay, so what we have done in exercise 3 is basically getting JavaScript code from the server, and that JavaScript code is going to do some partial update. But what you want to do is you want to receive just the data from the server, maybe in the form of JSON or XML. And once you have those data, once you got that data as a response, and then you are going to perform partial update yourself, right? So that's basically what you want to do as a next topic. So how do you specify response data type on Ajax request? If you don't specify response data type, then JavaScript is assumed. Okay, here we are going to explicitly say we want JSON or we want XML. Okay, so jQuery's Ajax method provides an optional parameter called data type to specify the desired data type of the response. So this is how you can specify the desired data type. So this allows jQuery to specify the desired response format type in the accept header of HTTP request. Okay, and then when it receives that data from the server, then it will do the partial update using JavaScript code itself. Okay, so possible data type it can ask could be XML, it could be HTML, it could be script. This is the case JavaScript, which is a default, or JSON, or it could be JSON-P, or it could be text. Okay, so this is useful when client wants to receive just the data from the server, then handle the change on the page using its own JavaScript code. Okay, all right, so that's basically what we want to do. So for form 4, we are going to specify data type. Okay, so this is your view helper. So view helper here, data type, I want to receive it in the form of JSON. Okay, and the key value is HTML. I don't know why this has to be HTML, but that's the way it works somehow. So HTML that gets generated underneath is that now is setting data type JSON. Okay, and so as I said before, if this data type is not set, then the script will be chosen by the server, and client actually choose the script to be the response format, and then the server will actually send the JavaScript code. Okay, so now here we are saying the client wants to receive the response data format in the form of JSON format. Okay, so handling Ajax response on client. So once it receives the desired data format, maybe in the form of JSON, then it needs to do, it needs to use that data to do the partial update. Okay. So here, basically, you can provide event handler in the Ajax request. So basically, Rails.js sends you a request in Ajax, and it also triggers custom events along the way, passing the corresponding data response to each event. So basically, you can actually provide your own event handler for these events: Ajax send, Ajax success, Ajax error, and Ajax complete. Okay, so the one that you want to use is Ajax success event handler. What that means is that whatever JavaScript function you provide for this event handler will be invoked when HTTP response from the server has been successful. Okay, and so this is the code. So you can, basically this is your JavaScript code. You basically send, so this is the event handler. So we have Ajax success event for Ajax success event, we want to invoke this code. So this is pretty much the same code that we have seen in exercise 3, but this one is coming from the server as a JavaScript code in exercise 3. Now we are going to actually provide those things ourselves using the data. So this is the data that came from the server in the form of a JSON, if you ask for it in the JSON. Okay, so this is the event handler for Ajax success, and this is the event handler that gets called when there is an error. Okay, I don't expect you to understand each of this code here. Basically all I want you to understand is that you can hook up the JavaScript function for Ajax success. Okay, and this data represent the data that came from the server. Okay. Okay, so that is exercise 4. So that is the last exercise. So now let's actually try to do this. So we are going to change form.html ELB form. So that is form here. Now, in addition to remote true, we are going to also specify the data format it wants to receive. Okay, so again, the default is JavaScript, but we don't want to receive it as a JavaScript. We want to receive it in the form of JSON. Okay, so this is what we are going to specify. So we say right here, I want to receive in the form of JSON rather than JavaScript. Okay, so we make that change. Okay, now we need, so now when you since you make a change in the form, and that means index.html page, we need to update the page. So let's actually update this page so that this page now contains the correct the code. Okay, all right, now what we're gonna do is so now when you actually see the form, so if you actually take a look at this guy, let's take a look at the source, and we should have this form. We should actually see data remote true and data type JSON. Okay, so this is actually in the generated HTML document. Okay, which means it's indication to the server that it wants to receive data in the form of JSON. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna create a brand new student, and then we're gonna create the student, and then we are sending the request with the accept header indicating the format it wants is the application JSON. Okay, and okay, so let's actually try that. So we're gonna actually create, I'm gonna just destroy a few students so that I have more space here. Let me just delete these guys. Okay, so now I'm going to say passion, and age is 22. Okay, and basically what we want to do is, we want to see accept header is set to JSON. Okay, so create student. Okay, so now let's see. Yeah, so this is the one. And if you take a look at the headers, the headers request header should have accept header is set to now application JSON. So this is an indication that it wants to receive the response format in the form of JSON. Okay, so that's what we just observed. Okay, and now when we actually create one, the response, now you can see, in fact, the data, if you click the response, the data is in the form of JSON. Okay, so this is the newly added student, and so this is the response data format is in the form of JSON. So that's what we expected, so that's good. Now what we need to do is we need to add a JavaScript Ajax event handler. Okay, so basically what we want to do is this is the form is new student. So observe that ID of the form is set to new student. In the subsequent step, we are going to attach Ajax success or Ajax error to the event handler to the form element. So basically we need to add event handler for this form element. So this form element submission will actually let us hook up success event handler and the error event handler. Okay, so we are going to write JavaScript code. Again, we are going to write a separate JavaScript code on the app assets JavaScript and mystudent.java file. Okay, so we are going to create, we go to assets and JavaScript. So any JavaScript code that you include under this directory will be executed. So we are going to actually have this JavaScript code in this file, and then we save this file, and we're going to call it as mystudent.js file. mystudent.js file. Okay, so the name of the file probably, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so let's actually see the documentation. So basically what you do is basically Ajax success and Ajax error, and basically what we are going to do is we are going to attach this event handler when there is a success. So if you see this new basically we are associating with a new student element, which is basically this form element. Okay, so we did that, and then we are going to refresh the browser, because we actually make a change to the in a sense the page. So we are going to refresh the page. Okay, all right, now let's actually see how things work. Okay, so refresh the page. Now so this code should be actually downloaded, okay, from the assets. Now you're gonna actually add a student, and it should actually behave in the form in Ajax manner. Okay, so now passion new nh1 new student, and then it actually behaves like that, okay, as expected. Okay, and test 111, and it works like this. So this, the behavior is exactly the same, but in exercise 4, what we have done is that we ask for the JSON data from the server rather than JavaScript data from the server, and then we handle the data through the JavaScript event handler, Ajax event handler on the client side. Okay. And next exercise is basically converting JavaScript to CoffeeScript, but it's not probably a big deal. We haven't learned CoffeeScript yet, so I don't expect you to do this exercise. Okay, so you can skip the 4.5, but the 4.3, but I expect you to do up to 4.2. Okay. Okay, so that is the end of this presentation. I'll give you guys about 10 minutes to finish up with the exercise.